Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the RDX Sports Podcast. I'm Simon Head, and joining me for this special preview of OKTAGON 82 this weekend is Sporf's James Sweetnam, who has been to a host of OKTAGON shows over the last few years, knows the promotion inside out, and we're looking forward to a huge year for the promotion in 2026. James, they're really expanding their event schedule this year. They're heading into Poland quite aggressively. They've gone into Germany and been a huge success. Give us your sort of initial thoughts before we launch into this on the growth of OKTAGON over the last few years. It's been a remarkable success story so far, right?
I mean, it most certainly has. The two promoters have done a sensational job of turning OKTAGON into this massive powerhouse of a promotion in Europe. So they obviously take over the Czech Republic, they take over Slovakia, they storm into Germany, they do massive shows. I know we both had the pleasure of being there in Frankfurt at the stadium, and now they're rolling to Poland. So big things this year.
Yeah, and as I say, they've dabbled with the UK market, but they've really had some success over there in Germany. They're going to have some. I'm sure they're going to have some big success in Poland. They've signed Michał Materla, who is obviously going to be a huge standard bearer for them. But they're kicking things off with a huge show, the Tipsport Gamechanger final. For those who don't know the Tipsport Gamechanger, it is a €1 million tournament that runs over the course of a full year. This past year, it was the middleweight division. Middleweight champion Kerim Engizek has made it all the way through to the final. And it's going to be a huge occasion for him as he looks to really establish himself as the number one against a guy who's been in there with some of the best in the world, Krzysztof Jotko from Poland, a former UFC veteran. He's in there in the main event, €300,000 up for grabs. Should the championship be on the line for this one as well, do you think?
Yeah, I'd like it to be. But irrespective, I still think it's an enormous fight. Engizek is somebody who's done massive things over the last few years. Obviously, a decade unbeaten now, and he's become a star. And, you know, this population that they have in Germany of Turkish fans is absolutely fantastic. We saw the reception. Ajit Kabayel just got in the boxing, and Kerim Engizek has that sort of fan base as well. We heard them very loudly in the Frankfurt stadium when he beat Patrick Kinsel. So I think there's going to be massive noise in the stadium this weekend.
Yeah, you look at their records at 24-4 for Engizek, 28-6 for Jotko. They're kind of comparable on paper, but they've taken two very different career paths, right? You've got Engizek has been on this stellar run, as you say, but this is the highest level of competition that he's been involved with. And Jotko, in terms of the level of experience that he's had, he's the highest grade opponent he's been in there with all due respect to the people he's been in there with so far. Jotko, meanwhile, he's looking to build back, isn't he? He had that stint in the PFL. That didn't go so well for him. He had the failed drug test. Ends up in OKTAGON, looking to build his way up. How do you see this one breaking down in terms of the stylistic side of things with this fight? Because you've got a real technician in Engizek and a guy who just knows how to win fights in Krzysztof Jotko. It's going to be a fascinating one to watch.
Yeah, Jotko's an excellent competitor. Obviously, you mentioned there, he was in the UFC, he did quite well there. He goes over to the PFL, and obviously that failed drug test is a blemish on his record, but he's looked good in OKTAGON. He's looked good throughout the Tipsport Gamechanger. But there is something that little bit special about Kerim Engizek, the fact that he's been on this run for over a decade, and there was criticism of his level of opponent before he fought Patrick Kinsel. But he went in against Kinsel, who was the pound-for-pound number one in OKTAGON at the time. He put on a stellar performance, but this weekend it's going up another level, isn't it, to Jotko? And can he rise to the occasion? That's the question.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned that run of Engizek. Kamil Onischuk was, I think, the first round victory for him. First round of the tournament, rather, won by unanimous decision. He'd already beaten Kinsel for the belt, entered the tournament, beats Mick Stanton via ground and pound in the first round. Stanton, who wanted the fight on the floor, he got the fight on the floor, but it ended up being not the way he wanted it to go. First round finish. Then he beats Dominik Humberger, who for me was one of the stars of the tournament. And it's a shame we're not going to get to see him on Saturday night. He was due to fight this weekend. He's had to pull out. I think he's going to fight a little bit further down the line, but he was a star of the tournament. He gets past Humberger, and now he's got Jotko. I think, as you say, 17-fight win streak. That's, you know, at whatever level you're competing in, he's competing at a solid level. You've got to respect that, right? Even though he hasn't fought a seasoned UFC competitor yet, this is an undefeated run you've got to respect, even though he hasn't had that truly elite opposition yet.
Yeah, I mean, his winning run's been absolutely sensational, hasn't it? And he's fought big names throughout his time in OKTAGON. We've obviously touched on Kinsel. You mentioned Mick Stanton there, and I was there that night, and he put on a fantastic showing. And around OKTAGON, around Fight Week, there was this real feeling amongst many of the fighters that Mick Stanton was capable of pulling off the upset. They were talking about his boxing resume. Obviously, he used to spar with James DeGale, Amir Khan, and obviously he was a Cage Warriors champion as well. And a lot of people thought this could be a bridge too far for Engizek. It definitely wasn't on fight night.
Yeah, and he's every time he's been asked the question, he's had the right answers, right? And I think he's going to be asked some different questions against Krzysztof Jotko this weekend. You look at his record, it's a bit patchy at points, but the level he's operated in, the people he's been in there with, he's been in there with like Talis Latis, who fought for the UFC middleweight title back in the day. He shared the cage with Uriah Hall, Brad Tavares, admittedly in losing efforts, but he's held his own against some big names in the division. He went the distance with Sean Strickland, who went on to become a world champion. And he's always been a really tricky puzzle to solve, I've always thought. Tricky on the feet, but sneaky good on the ground as well. And I'm wondering how much that's going to come into play on Saturday night. From a stylistic point of view, where would you be leaning in terms of who you think's got the edge in this fight?
I think Engizek is too good on the feet for Jotko to have not thought about the grappling aspect. So I think he's going to look to take it to the floor. But even saying that, as good as Engizek has been, there were holes in his game that were exposed a little bit against Humberger. Had that fight not taken place, I think I'd be quite heavily leaning towards Engizek to win this one. But the fact that Humberger was able to put in such a good performance, really push Engizek, I think that gave us a whole new way of looking at this fight. And Jotko will have looked at that and thought, if Humberger can rock you, if Humberger can put in a good performance against you, I can definitely beat you.
Yeah. And the run that Jotko's had in this tournament, Iron Surdu in the first round. I mean, what a test to be given. The welterweight champion was stepping up into 185 pounds, outworks him for a decision, beats Marek Mazuk. Second round TKO, more ground and pound. That's where he likes to get the job done from mount, throwing strikes. And then he beats Hojek Karjavand, who obviously made his way into the tournament late, got himself into a position to potentially get into the final, but goes the distance. That was a tough fight, actually. That was a really tough fight. Those two went the distance in that one, but those octagon smarts, if you like, from Jotko got him through to the final. In terms of what happens next at middleweight, if we end up, let's say Engizek wins, right? I think he's going to be probably the bookie's favourite going into this. I think it's going to be tight, but let's say Engizek gets the job done. How do you want to see the middleweight division breaking out? Because it's always a bit tricky when you've got a tournament where you've got a lot of good fighters who are kind of having to sit around a little bit. They're not able to advance their case for a title fight because the champ is still in the tournament. So, what's the most sort of the most attention-grabbing middleweight title fight that we could potentially book for Engizek if he gets the job done on Saturday night and we look to book him for maybe Q3?
I think we've got to do the Muradov fight, haven't we? I mean, he put in a great performance against Kinsel. He's coming off the back of the UFC where he had a good run. He was 4-2. He's a tremendous operator. And I think the way he beat Kinsel was just as impressive as the way Engizek did. So for me, they're the two guys I'd love to see in the octagon together. And I don't think that he's been pushed enough, Muradov. Obviously, he was meant to get in the cage with Will Fleury at one point. That didn't take place. He did the whole stare down, and Will Fleury's gone in another direction. We could discuss what a Merry Christmas he had at some point, possibly. But I think that's the fight.
Let's do that right now. Let's do that because I think he's a factor. I really do. He wants to win championship belts in 3 weight classes. That doesn't get done very often, if at all. He's already got the heavyweight belt. He's got the light heavyweight belt. He's probably going to need to defend the 205 belt first, I would imagine, on his way down to 185 if he wants to fight 185. But Kerim Engizek versus Will Fleury looks to me like an absolutely colossal fight. If Fleury could get down and make the weight, and if they can get that fight booked for some point, maybe that's a Q4 fight. I don't know. But to me, that looks like an absolutely colossal fight for Octagon later in the year.
Yeah, it'd be absolutely massive. I met Martin Badai right after he signed for Octagon. And granted, I'm not the biggest man in the world, but next to Martin Badai, I looked absolutely tiny. I looked small. I felt like Yoda, Simon. It was horrendous. He's an enormous human being, and I actually felt scared for Will Fleury going into that fight. I was actually expecting Badai to win this one. And Will Fleury looked absolutely fantastic, didn't he? And it's not like, granted, it ended in a round, but it wasn't like one fluke punch for the entirety of that round. Will Fleury was completely dominating the contest. Nobody was really expecting it. And off the back of that, there's people saying that they want Will Fleury to have a run in the UFC. There's so much hype behind him now, but I think becoming a freeweight champion in Octagon would be a sensational achievement. Yeah, I think I'd like to see it.
Yeah, that performance, just to take that performance on its own, was one of the best performances in a title fight this year, I think. Just given the odds that were even though he was the champ coming in, it felt like he was the challenger and that he had everything stacked against him. As you say, Budai is an absolute tank of a human being. He's big for a heavyweight. If you have to cut weight to make heavyweight, then you're a large human being. Will Fleury, former middleweight fighter. I remember watching him in Bellator against Norbert Novenyi in Dublin in an absolute bloodbath. That was a great fight. At 185 pounds, and here he is going in there and lighting up Martin Budai like a Christmas tree, just after Christmas, as it turned out, in Prague. Incredible performance. The way he caught the kick, the overhand shot that dropped him, and the way he just wouldn't let him go after that was just remarkable stuff. And like the world is his oyster now, right? If he asks for stuff, Octagon have got to give it to him. Surely he's got to be like the biggest name in Octagon right now in terms of star power, someone who's getting in the cage and actually delivering on what he said. There are some other names in the division who are in the promotion who are doing big things or have a big name. But the one who's not just saying what he's going to do and he's going in and doing it, it's Will Fleury.
Yeah, 100%. He's talking the talk and he's walking the walk, isn't he? I mean, when he got in the cage with Carlos Amola, I mean, we've got to remember the Terminator. It is the biggest star in this promotion. I know he's just retired, but there's literally nobody in the Czech Republic who commands more respect and who has a bigger fanfare when he fights. Literally, the whole of Czech Republic come out to see this guy. And we've seen that twice when he's fought in Eden Stadium against Attila Vey. So the fact that Fleury was able to say exactly what he was going to do, he went in there, dominated Carlos Amola, and it was heart alone, really, and grit, wasn't it, that got Carlos Amola to the final bell. But that was a tremendous performance from Will Fleury. And I think that exposed him to the Czech audience. It made the Czech audience fall in love with him. He was cheered at the end of the fight. And the fact that he's just done Budai in such brilliant fashion, we've got to remember this was a guy who was on a winning run in the UFC when he ended up leaving the promotion. It's not like a guy who was in the UFC but was sort of past his best. This was a sensational win from Will Fleury.
Yeah, and whoever wins this fight at the weekend, whether it be Kerim Engizek or Krzysztof Jotko, you could bet Will Fleury will be on the social straight away saying, I'm here, boys. I'm here. I'm ready. And surely we're going to see Fleury in a middleweight title fight at some point in 2026. But that is not the only big attraction on this fight card at Octagon 82. One fight that leapt off the page as soon as I saw it was El Pistolero himself, Dennis Ilbay, taking on Karol Rusavi. Slightly lopsided in terms of the fight records, but stylistically, I can't see this one sort of failing to deliver. It's going to be an absolute barn burner for as long as it lasts. Ilbay loves to throw those hands. Rusavi just loves to get in there and throw down as well. You've seen Ilbay in there yourself. I mean, what do you make of El Pistolero? Great nickname as well.
Fantastic nickname, and I adore watching him. I think he's fantastic. He obviously has that sensational boxing record. He's had, I think, about 25 boxing bouts. He's excellent with his hands. We were touching before on the Turkish-German fan base that Engizek has. Ilbay has exactly the same thing. I remember when he fought Corey Fry, Britain's own, in Cologne, and the noise in the arena was absolutely astronomical. And they have the merch stands Octagon, so they've got all the different merch stands around the arena. And then Ilbay has his own personalised merch stand. This is how popular this guy is in Germany. He's incredibly entertaining. Obviously, he lost that night to Corey Fry, but it was still a sensational fight. But he's had big victories since, and he's just had that fight with Max Holzer, hasn't he? And in that, for my money, they're 1-1 now because Holzer won the official fight, but then seconds after, Ilbay's punching him outside of the cage. So he's an excellent fighter, popular guy, and I can't wait to see him back in action.
Yeah, and he had that fight with Vlado Lengal last February, which two of my favourite guys in that weight class, two guys who always seem to bring exciting fights. I was always hoping that they would match them together at some point. It only lasted 2 rounds, which was a bit of a shame, but it was a nasty body shot that got it done for Dennis Ilbay. Karol Rusavi, he's been in there with a lot of people. He's won a few, he's lost a few, but he's dangerous up close. He's got that guillotine choke. He's won his last 2 fights by that method. He's been away from Octagon since last October. He's fought since and picked up a win. Now he's coming back in. You know, they love their Czech and Slovak fighters, obviously, Octagon. That's where they come from. And he's been a stalwart for the promotion. And he's going to make sure that this is a good fight on Saturday night for sure.
Yeah, Rusavi's a good fighter. He's got some good submissions, as you mentioned there. And we've seen that Ilbay, obviously, coming from the boxing background, he is susceptible to being submitted. Corey Fry obviously got him with an armbar, and that was after Ilbay had looked pretty good right before Corey Fry obviously was managed to come back into the fight and showcased his English chin, as he told me in the post-fight interview. But I think Ilbe's a good fighter. I think he'll be looking to unleash his hands, and he's got to avoid those grappling exchanges at all costs for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned English chins and all the rest of it. We do have some English involvement on Saturday night. James Hendon, former Cage Warriors contender, former title challenger, I believe, in Cage Warriors, looking to make his way up that featherweight division, taking on Johnny Palakai, who he himself has some big plans in that weight class as well. This is a big fight for the division, right? It's two guys looking to move their way into contention. There's a fair amount of hype between both of them. Hendon maybe hasn't had the best start in the promotion yet. Palakai is on his way up. This is a good fight for Hendon, I think. What do you think?
I think it's really interesting. I rate Hendon quite highly. I remember when he signed for Octagon, I thought he could be the best English fighter in the promotion, and it's not quite happened for him yet. But I still think he's got a lot to do. I mean, I remember watching him in Cage Warriors in Manchester when he fought Harilla, and he launched him towards the canvas, and Harilla's arm separated quite badly. It was an awful injury. But Hendon's an excellent fighter. He's a great judo practitioner. I know his dad used to work him every single day, come home from school, and it was straight to the gym, straight training. So he's had this regimented martial arts lifestyle since he's a kid, and I think he's still capable of doing big things in the promotion.
Yeah, this will be his fourth fight under the Octagon banner. He took on Jacob Donnell, beat him in Birmingham, I think it was. Was it Birmingham, the AB Creasy fight?
Yes,
that was the main event. I was there for that one. Then he took on Mago Makayev at Octagon 62. That was in the big stadium, obviously in Frankfurt. Didn't get the job done there, but it was a tight, closely contested fight, I thought. And he took on Aiton Dupep, who anyone who watches Cage Warriors will have remembered him from them. He's now in Octagon as well. Gets the unanimous decision, so he's back in the win column. And a win over someone like Palakai, I think, could really catapult him, because Palakai is in a great run of form. I think he's like 7-fight win streak he's on right now, and 6 of them are under the Octagon banner. So he's really got some momentum behind him. If James Hendon can stop that momentum or steal it for himself, he's probably a 1 win away maybe from a shot at the featherweight title, because I think for Octagon, they want international fighters in higher positions to help broaden their reach, but they're not just going to dish out title fights for free. You've got to earn them on the way up. And I think a lot of fighters have found when they've joined Octagon that the depth of talent in this promotion is perhaps a lot deeper than they might have expected when they first joined. It's a bit of a shark tank of a promotion. And I think Palakai is a bit of a shark at 145 pounds. This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it most certainly is. I mean, Hendon's got to get through a sensational fighter to earn his shot at the title. And as you mentioned there, Palakai has been on a really good run, and he's not going to throw away his winning record in this fight. He's got to come out to win it. I think Hendon's still capable of getting the job done. I think his grappling's excellent. And I think you're right. I think if he gets through this one, he's not going to be too far away from winning that gold.
Yeah, it's going to be that for me is one of the most intriguing fights on the card. Palakai ranked 5th in the Octagon featherweight division. Hendon currently ranked 7th. Those could easily swap over by the end of the weekend, and then Hendon's taking a shot at someone in championship contention next time out. But one fight I wanted to pick out: Tamerlan Dulatov versus Stefan Konchar. 2 undefeated prospects. This is a catchweight fight at 81.5 kilos. Both undefeated. Dulatov 3-0, Konchar 4-0. But Dulatov is someone who I think that the Octagon are really, really keen on, and someone who I think they're going to really look to build over the course of the next year or so, especially with their growing into that German market.
Yeah, definitely. I think around sort of the trade in mixed martial arts, I think we're all a little bit excited about Dulatov and what he's going to be capable of achieving. And in Octagon, they like to build stars quick, don't they? We've seen how quickly they build Max Holzer up. He's chucked him right in the deep end against Corey Fry, and he's just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think we're going to see the same sort of thing with Dulatov.
So he still is only 3 fights into his career. So he's had 2 fights under the Octagon banner. He beats Geith Igzawi, I hope I haven't butchered that name, via guillotine choke, 16 seconds. That's how you make your debut, right? For Octagon MMA, 16 seconds for a quick paycheck. Second fight, 52 seconds for a first round knockout against Enrique Melo. So we haven't seen a lot of Tamerlan Dulatov, but what we have seen has been pretty effective so far. Konchar 4-0. This will be his promotional debut with Octagon MMA. So looking forward to seeing how that one goes. But Octagon 82, obviously, James, talking about the year as a whole, right? They're looking to branch out. Germany is somewhere where they've already made great strides. Poland is next. And Poland so far has been the realm of KSW, and we've seen how big some of their shows can become. How quickly do you think Octagon can get themselves into a position to maybe start challenging KSW and putting on shows of that sort of scale in Poland? We've seen them do it in Germany already.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that they've opted to go to Poland next. Obviously, there was other countries rumoured that you were potentially going to go to, but they've selected one that has a really good hardcore MMA audience. We've seen some of the massive shows that KSW have put on over the last few years. I mean, they had Scott Askham in a stadium, didn't they? I mean, more recently, they've had Eddie Hall fighting in KSW. So they put on big shows. Our own Phil DeFries is constantly fighting KSW, and he's put together a fantastic record. I think they've done the right thing by signing somebody like Materla. I think they're going to bring some big shows to Poland. And I think these two promotions going toe-to-toe, tangoing, I think it's going to push them to the limits. And I think we're going to have to see both promotions going above and beyond to beat the other.
Yeah, it's going to be a big year for the promotion. I'm really looking forward to sort of following that story through the year, and having another big promotion in Europe is only good news for the fighters, right? Cage Warriors obviously is long established and the perfect launch pad if you want to work your way to the elite leagues and fight in the UFC. But you need to have good, high quality MMA at the European level. KSW deliver it. Octagon most certainly deliver it. Cage Warriors deliver it. So having Octagon there, putting on big shows in front of big crowds is great. And they make for great TV as well. Like, the production values are excellent, and love watching and listening to the Big Slow, Luke Barnett and Brian Lacey on comms as well. It's always good fun. That is Octagon 82 coming to us from Dusseldorf, Germany this Saturday night. You can get that on octagon.tv on pay-per-view. But James, thanks so much for joining us on this event preview for Octagon 82. Where can we check out your work before you leave us?
All over social media, so you can go to Sporf. You can check all my written work there. I'll be posting stuff on Instagram at JamesSweetnam99. That's Twitter and Instagram. I've just done some stuff with Prince Naseem Hamed and Piers Brosnan, so that should be out soon, ahead of their new film Giant, which is absolutely fantastic. I recommend people go and see it. But yeah, hopefully some big stuff coming up this year, Simon, and thank you very much for having me on the show.
No worries. We'll have to have you back as the year progresses. There'll be plenty to talk about, I am sure. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us on this show, James, and thanks to you for joining us on the RDX Sports podcast. Big fights coming this weekend. We'll have coverage all week long and throughout the weekend on the RDX Sports blog. Until then, have a good rest of the week. We'll speak to you soon.